Hey there, Jacqueline here, and I am going to be showing off my Milestone 2 for my top-down shooter for programming for game engines. So let's get started. So first, let me just show you that I have everything from Milestone 1 in. I didn't change my player character, but as you can see, I can move around and the camera follows the player, and as I move my mouse, the player turns to follow it. Cool. So I added a couple of new weapons. We've got this rifle, which is just a machine gun. It fires quickly. Right. And then I also have the pistol, which fires less quickly than the machine gun. There. Cool. So I'm going to show you how I set all this up and made it possible to have weapons in here. So let's go through that. So first, I created a pickups class. This is the base class for this script. So essentially I just kind of defined some of the stuff that a pickup should do. So we have a lifespan. So after a certain amount of seconds, the pickup will destroy itself. So here in Awake, you could see that I have the destroy game object after lifespan. So this is just whatever the designer chooses for the lifespan to be. It'll destroy itself after that many seconds. I also have an on trigger enter. So anything that collides with it, it'll recognize. But specifically, if the player collides with it, then it'll just call the on pickup and pass in the player's player script. So this is the player on pickup. Right? All it does is destroy the game object. This is the virtual void, but I also have override voids within my classes, my child classes. Cool. So first thing I'll do is show you some of the pickups. I have a health pickup, I have the machine gun, and I also have a pistol. So I'll do the health pickup first. All that does is it adds health to the player's current health. So currently I have the player's initial health starting at 50, and when you walk into it, the health thing, all it does is add 10 more, so the player's health should now be at 60. We'll double check. Current health 60. Yep. Cool. So let me show you how that works. So this is the child class of the pickup class. It's called health pickups. And essentially all this one does is it adds a variable called amount. So this is how much the health pickup will heal the player. I also have an override void, which so the base class had an on pickup method, and this one is the same method. It just overrides it so that it'll do this one over the other one. So when the player runs into a health pickup, it'll call the heal class on the player to add health to their current health. And then also I have it calling the base method because the base method just destroys the object. So instead of doing it again, I just called the base one. So that's how that works. So from here, we call the player health. So on the player script, there is a method called heal. And essentially what the method does is it adds health to the current health. So here's my void heal. I pass in the amount, and then I just add to the current health, I add the amount that we want to heal. Okay. And then so that's how that works. And then I have it updating the UI. So the UI class is just on top of the canvas, and what it does is has a reference to the player script, which holds the health, and then also a reference to the fill amount on the bar, so that way we can increase and decrease the fill amount. Cool. So the first thing I did in Awake is just find the player game object and get the player component off of it and set it to this health variable. And then in Update, I just set the health fill amount to the percent of the health. And that happens in player. So I just, in the player script, I just calculate what the percentage is, since the fill amount on the image only goes up to 1. So I just down here at the bottom have a property which just gets it just gets the amount by calculating it. So I have a float in here called percent, and I set that equal to the current health divided by the max health, and then return the percent. So when I call that in the UI script, it just gets the percent and then sets the fill amount to that. Cool. So next, for pickups, I have my weapons pickup. We're going to set the weapons transform and rotation equal to the attachment points, and then we're going to just set that to the same layer as the player. After all of that, we're going to say that we do have a weapon equipped, because we just equipped one, and then we're going to call the on-equip event. We're going to invoke that. So that is on my player. I have an event right here called on-equip, and when the player equips a weapon, we're going to call the game manager's change animation method. Okay, so let me open that up, stop playing, And game manager. Okay, so on our game manager, we have a method called change animation. Inside this, I have a switch, and we just check to see which weapon type the player's weapon type variable had been set to. If it's 0, then we're not going to play any animation. So we're just setting in the animator that we have no weapon. Then in case 1, so this is the rifle. So if the weapon type is 1, then we're going to set it to use our rifle animation for the arms. If it's 2, we're going to use the pistol animation for the arms. And then if it is a shotgun, we're just going to use the rifle animation because the hand positioning is pretty good. We don't really need to worry about that because it's top down. You can't really see how the player's holding it too much, so we're just going to leave it as a rifle for simplicity and ease for us. So once we set that animation, so that way the player looks like it's holding the right type of weapon. Cool, so that's how my pickups work. They also have, let me show you the prefabs real quick, because the prefabs are all set up so that they have a box collider, which is set to a trigger. So when the player overlaps with this, it will destroy the game object, and then it'll instantiate the weapon equipped, which is different than this one because this one has the weapon pickup while the other one has the weapon script. So then this one gets destroyed, and then it instantiates the equipped weapon on the player at the right point. So, but all of my pickups are set up the same way. I have my weapon pickup script. I say how long I want the lifespan to be. I pull the equip weapon prefab and I put it in there, and then I set which type it is, as well as making sure that the box collider on it is set to is trigger. Cool. So that is my pickups. Next I'm going to show you how I have the player holding the weapon. Cool. So I'm using inverse kinematics, so IK, for getting this all set up. So I'm going to play real quick and grab a weapon. So do this one. That is my machine gun weapon, and I'm going to, in the scene view, kind of pull up here and look at the weapon in the hands. So this weapon has 2 points on it, just 2 game objects, so I'll show you where those ones are, which is called my left IK target. Oops. So my left IK target, which you can see here, and if I move it, it moves the hand, because what the IK target is doing, well, there's a script that just changes the position of this hand to the position of this IK target. So I can move this around and really position the hands where I want it to be. So that way we get a better look and on how they're holding the weapon. So you see my right target also, I can do the same thing. I can move it around, I can rotate it pretty much however, yeah, and get it positioned exactly how I want it to be on the weapon. And I did this for all the weapons, so if we go back into playing, actually I think the pistol's gone, yeah, so I will replay and show you the pistol. Cool. So you can see she's holding the pistol there, and again I have the target on here, which the animation just moves to, yeah, so we can see we have that on both hands. Cool. So that's how it works in here. So I'll show you the prefabs of my equipped weapons, and I'll show you how I have so I just have the IK target just set right on there, so that way the character just grabs right where I need their hand to be. And how I got the positioning on these is I just went into my scene view while I was playing once the weapon was in the correct attachment point was in the correct spot, and I just kind of moved it around and saved the position and rotation, and kind of put it in there once I was finished, like getting it all positioned. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this works. So on my player, I have in my player script, I have this on animation IK, or on animator IK. So this method gets called when the animator does an IK pass. So every time it does it, it'll get called and it'll move the hand to the correct location. So if there is no weapon equipped, I just tell it stop. You don't need to do this. Go back. You do not pass go. But if I do have a weapon, so if my weapon does have a right target, then we're going to set the position, so the IK position to the, so we're saying that our goal is our right hand, and we're going to set it to the position of the IK target. And then under that, I set the weight to 1, so that way it will play and it will move the hand. If it has like a weight of 0, it won't do anything. So we need to make sure that that gets set to 1. And then for my rotation, I just say, yep, set that right hand to the rotation of the right IK target. Also set the weight to 1 so we make sure that will play. If the right IK target isn't set at all, then we're just going to set the position weight and rotation weight to 0 so it doesn't do anything at all. The hand will just remain unaffected. And then I did the same thing for the left hand. So if the left IK target is not null, we're just going to set that left hand position, rotation, and weight. So we're going to set the left hand position rotation equal to the left IK target, and then we're going to set the weights to 1 to make sure that it does play. But if the IK target isn't set at all, then we're just going to set it to 0 so that it won't do anything. And that's how that IK stuff works. So next I did add a playable or a killable enemy or target. Right now it's just a this capsule, little capsule. When you shoot it, it dies, and then it respawns, so you can just continue shooting the enemies. So how I set this up was in my game manager. So let's pull that up. So in my game manager, I have some enemy stuff. So I have a transform for my enemy spawn. I have a game object which holds the prefab for the enemy, and then I have an empty game object called enemy, which will hold the instantiated enemy once we get it instantiated. So I also have a timer. It's just a float value that is will hold the time that the timer starts, and then I have the wait time, which is how long we're going to wait before we do something. I also have a boolean, which is timer set, to make sure that if it isn't set, then we can instantiate a new one, but if it is, then we can't. Cool. And then also my game manager is a singleton, so I have this public sec instance variable of the game manager, and in my awake I say if this instance is not equal null and it's not this, then we're going to destroy it because we don't care. We want to make sure that the same one persists throughout each level, and then otherwise we're going to just set the instance to this script. Cool. So so anyway, my enemies. So just in update, I said if the timer is not set, so if this is false, then we are going to set the enemy timer, which is just a method I created down here. All it does is sets the enemy spawn timer to time.time, so the time that it gets called, and then I set is timer set to true, and then if the timer is set, then we're going to just wait for the timer to be up before we spawn an enemy. So if time.time is greater than enemy spawn timer plus the wait time and the enemy is null, then we're going to instantiate this enemy. Cool. And then when it dies, so when the enemy dies in the health script, where is it? Here we go. So in the health script, I have a reference to the game manager. Right. So here. So in this kill function, so this kill function works by saying like, hey, if you hit an enemy, so if the enemy took damage, then I'm going to save this so we can access it easy. I'm just going to get the enemy component, and then if the enemy component minus damage is less than or equal to 0, then we're just going to kill the enemy. Instead of adding the damage, we're just going to kill it. And so we destroy the game object, but we also check to see if the game object was an enemy, and if it is, then we're going to set the is timer to false. That way, so the is timer set to false. That way it can respawn a new enemy. So since this is false, it'll set the timer again, and then we'll wait for the time to pass, and then it'll respawn. Right now my timer is set to 1 second, so when you shoot the enemy, it just takes 1 second to respawn. Cool. And then I have the damage that the pistol is doing set to the enemy's health. Cool. So that's pretty much it. I just want to go through all of the scripts I showed you and showed that they're commented, as I'm sure you noticed as we went through them. Just went through, made sure that everything's commented, so if any designers were to get in here to try to add some functionality or do stuff, then they could easily do it. So for the thing that I did above and beyond, we created a shotgun. Oh no. A shotgun. So I'll play this. Right. So on my weapons pickup, so I need to do, I'm going to show you how I did that. So I'm going to create a new script called shotgun, and then weapon. Okay, we're going to open this up. So this is just, the script is going to handle everything that the machine gun does. So actually that's not what I wanted. I think it should work. I think it should work. Alright, so pick up my shotgun. I don't have the IK totally set up for it. Oh, and it's shooting sideways. Okay. Okay, so that is everything. I want to thank you so much for listening and joining me today, and I will see you next time.